Hello and welcome to my very first video on Express PCB. I'm going to show you how to create positive films for the photo positive method of creating PCBs. Now this assumes that you already know Express PCB. There's plenty of tutorials out there to show you how to create a schematic using Express SCM and then utilizing that schematic within Express PCB. I'm not going to cover that here. I assume you already know how to do that and how to create a double-sided board. So let's take a look at the software that I'm using to perform this task. Of course, Express PCB, and the version I'm using is 7.3.5. Then two Adobe applications. One's Adobe Acrobat 10 Professional and Adobe Photoshop CS6. Alright, that out of the way, I'm now going to go to a project that I've been working on. It's a Raspberry Pi project. And let me open it up. This is just the interface module portion of the project. It's a simple module. That's why I wanted to demonstrate that one to begin with. So let me maximize this to, now let's go ahead and do it small. Okay, I have my board here. It's a double-sided board, and we can take a look at the different sides here. Here's the bottom layer, and this is the top layer. I changed the colors to green and purple from the default colors, so that's why it may look a little strange to you. So let me turn both of those back on. And I've already validated all my connections using this highlight net connections to make sure everything's connected up properly. That should be connected up. So let's get started with how do we get a positive film from this application. You can't really export it because the only thing under export is a mechanical drawing. So the way you do it is you go to print, and under print you want to set your printer to the Microsoft XPS document writer. Now I have Windows 7 on my machine, and prior to that was Vista. I don't know if Vista has the XPS document writer, or even if XP did. I assume that you're not using those old operating systems anyway. So you want to set it to that, because that will write your output. Instead of the printer, it'll write it to a file with an XPS extension. So I'm going to start with the top layer. I'm just going to run through one of these, but there are 4 different layers here. You've got the top and bottom layer, and then your silkscreen layer, which is that of your component outlines and your pads. That's just the component outlines, because the other silkscreen layer has the component outlines, your pads, and your text all on one. And the top, bottom, and pads and text layers are the ones I use. I don't really use the silkscreen layer, but just the component outlines, because they're already included in the last one. So at any rate, we're going to start by creating a film for the top copper layer. So choose that one and then click OK. It's going to prompt you for a file name. Now I've already created a directory. Let me show you under PCB images. I created 2 directories, one for interface XPSs and one for interface PNGs. We're going to save this one to the XPS's directory. And I've already done this previously, that's why the files already exist here. If you'll notice, you don't have a file name, you have to type it in, so that's why I left the old ones there. All I got to do is inherit the file name for the top layer that I already have there. Shows up down here, click Save. Yes, I want to replace it. Okay. Let's take a look at what that created here. At least go to the directory that I created it in. And here's the file right here that we just did. You could double click it and open it up in the viewer, the XPS viewer, but it's not going to get you anything. So let's go back and refresh this screen. The Adobe Acrobat 10 Pro is what you have to have installed for this next step. If you don't have it installed, then when you right mouse click on this, you won't see Convert to Adobe PDF. And that's what we want to select. We want to right mouse click on the XPS file and choose Convert to Adobe Acrobat PDF. That opens it up in Adobe Acrobat. Now this is not the Adobe Reader, this is the actual Adobe Acrobat Professional. So once that's open, pull on your file menu, choose Save As, Image, and PNG. Now when the Save As dialog comes up, click on Settings. Make sure all your settings are as follows. Interlace is none, filter is adaptive, color management is embed profile, grayscale is off, color space is RGB. Now the resolution is a problem depending upon how much memory you have on your computer. I have 1 gig of RAM on my computer, and I like using 1200 pixels per inch. I can't use 2400 because it'll give me an instant out of memory error when I load it into Photoshop. Photoshop is what doesn't like it. So remember, we're creating a PNG here that we're going to open up in Photoshop. So probably your best bet is to choose 600, even though I use 1200 and I put up with the out of memory, which requires a reboot every single time you try to export from Photoshop or you try to save as a PNG after cropping. Anyway, we'll get to that when we come there. For right now, I'm just going to say 600, and hopefully it's not going to get an out of memory. I haven't tried this yet. I probably should have, but I didn't. Okay, I'm going to say 600. And hit OK. And then it's already named your file right here with a .png extension. However, I'm going to modify that name and put no, I'm not. I'm just going to leave it the way it is, because it already exists right there. Just click Save. I'm sorry for the confusion there. Now then, progress for saving it's done. Okay, we can go ahead and close out of Adobe Acrobat. You don't want to save the project, so just say no. Now we have, if we go back up to the interfaces PNG, this is what we just created. Now the next step, now that we have a PNG out of the business, we want to open that up, right mouse click, and open with Adobe Photoshop. In this case I have CS6, probably works in CS5 and CS4 and what have you. However, I don't have that, so I couldn't test it. We're going to go ahead and open that up. Alrighty, Now we have our image, but it's not by any means a positive film because it has a white background and a black foreground. So that's no good. Can't make a transparency out of that. So we have to fix that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as an Adobe project, Adobe Photoshop project that is. So I choose File, Save As, and then change the default PNG to be Photoshop PSD. And I'm going to save it into a folder I created called Cropped and Transparent. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to crop it and make it transparent. That way it'll actually be a film. I'm going to modify the name here to avoid confusion to be cropped and transparent. Just tack that onto the end of the file name and then choose Save. Now we have a new project. We're going to modify this image, so we want to go over to the right side under the Layers tab in Photoshop and right mouse click in the blue area of the background and click Duplicate Layer. Then it prompts you for a name for the layer. I just go with the default. It's not really important. Then going back to the original background, which is your bottom layer here, turn off that eyeball. That way the the background layers, the original layer is no longer visible on the screen. Then single click on the copy that we just made, and its eyeball should be on. Then go to the image directory and click Trim. When the dialog comes up asking you how you want to trim it, you want to trim it based on the top left pixel color, which if you look at the top left up here, it's white. So that's what we want to do. We want to get rid of everything white around the edges of this board. So I just click OK, and there it is. It cropped it for you. Next step, we want to get rid of all this white area. If I zoom in a little bit, you'll see between the pads is white. We want to make that transparent. So to do so, by the way, I hit Control positive and Control negative to zoom in and out. Pull down the Select menu and choose Color Range. Now, color range is asking you to move your mouse over the top of a color, and you see this little eyedropper, and click the color that you want to select, and it'll select all occurrences of that color across the whole image. So I'm going to move the eyedropper right to this white here, and I'm going to click on it. Then I'm going to click OK. As you can see, all the white areas are highlighted. So now if you on your keyboard, if you push the delete key, it will delete all the white. And in order to more clearly see that, pull down your Select menu and choose Deselect. Now you can see that instead of white, let me zoom in a little bit, it now has a checkerboard background. That means in Photoshop, checkerboards means it's transparent. You can see through it. Now we have, I'm zooming out, Control minus. Now we have an actual positive film that can be saved as a PNG file, and that is your film that you're going to use to develop your printed circuit board. So let me just save the project now that it's been cropped. And here's where it would blow up on memory if I had chosen 1200 dots per inch as opposed to the 600 that I did choose here. And hopefully it's not going to run out of memory when I go to save it as. So pull out File, Save As. And for your format, choose PNG right down here. Got it? Okay. It already has a name for it that it inherited from the project with a PNG extension. And I'm going to go ahead and save it to the same folder as the actual project is in, the crop and transparent folder. So I'm just going to click save. And I'm going to leave these at default, smallest slow, and interlace as none, and out of memory. Okay, that means I'm going to have to still reboot in order to solve this problem. Now, I've had this problem on every single PC that I tried it on, of course, none of which had more than 1 gig of RAM on it. So I'm going to pause the video right here, and I'm going to reboot, and I'm going to come back. Alright, I'm back after the reboot, and on the screen I have the PSD project file from Adobe Photoshop for the top layer that we cropped and made transparent. I'm going to go ahead and open that up in Photoshop. And here we go. We can see we're right back to where we left off. Nice transparent image. Tell by the checkerboards. Now I'm going to pull down File, choose Save As, PNG, right down here to the cropped and transparent directory. That's where we want it. File name is correct. We're going to say save. Compression is the smallest, interlace is none. And it's done. Alright. So if we go ahead and close out of Photoshop, we can see there's our new PNG right there for it. And if we open it up in Photoshop again, we should be able to see just the PNG, no project. And there it is. Notice there's only a layer 0 on that side over there. And this is the image that you're going to want to print directly on your acetate or laser transparency, laser compatible transparency, in order to expose, not dispose, but expose your board to the ultraviolet light. Now, while I'm here, let me just close this out, go back into Express PCB, and reload that interface file. Okay, let me leave that small. Under the File menu, going back to the print function that we originally created these XPSs with, these other layers, I wanted to quickly show you the silkscreen paths and text on top layer. The reason I want to show you that is because I'm adding a graphic of a logo, a company logo, onto the printed circuit board, and the best place to do that is in the silkscreen paths and text on top layer. That's why you want to leave plenty of copper on your board by utilizing the let me show you here, the place a filled plane. If you have a lot of filled planes, it's not only is it less copper that has to be eaten away by the ferric chloride acid, but it also gives you a nice playing field to put a logo picture or something on right on the copper. And when you create your solder mask layer that has your component layouts and everything, they'll go right onto the copper. Both the component outlines will show up as part of the solder mask layer. So that's kind of a cheat way to do it. but Adobe Photoshop will allow you to put these icons in by editing this silkscreen paths and text layer. So let me go ahead and export that to the XPS directory. I already have it there. It's right here, silkscreen paths and text layer. Yeah, I'll just say replace it. And I can close out of that. And just like before, you want to convert it to Adobe PDF. This is it right here. You right mouse click it, you convert it to Adobe PDF. You save as an image, a PNG type, and all the same settings and such. Okay. Now, in order to avoid this reboot issue on this one, I'm going to assume that you can just walk through the same steps you did when we created the top layer positive film. And I'm going to skip to that. Let me just close that down. Let's go back to our crop and transparent. Oh, I don't have it. Okay, at any rate, I can cheat that as well. If I open up, take the paths and layered up PNG. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Let me just do a quick image trim and another select color range of white. Oops, I forgot to duplicate the layer. Turn that one off. Delete that. Okay. We're just going to try to add an image in here. Select, deselect. So there's our paths and text layer, silkscreen. You can, if you choose very carefully a portion that has a lot of copper on it, you can actually insert an image in here. Let me find an image to slap in there, just as a demonstration purpose. Let's see here. Logos, here we go. And try to create a black and white version of an image because color isn't going to work here, obviously. I have one of our logos here. I'm going to drag and drop that right over here. Wow, it doesn't look too good, does it? Not a very good image for demonstration. Not very good at all, as a matter of fact. But you get the idea. If this were a nice looking image. Problem is it has white letters next to the logo. You could like position it on the screen wherever you want it. And like I said, be sure to look at the layout to see where it's going to show up the clearest, which will be over the top of a piece of copper. But there it is, and if we kind of zoom in, we can see we have a nice little logo that when we, either by virtue of silk screening or by using the UV sensitive paint, you can transfer this solder mask on there with the UV paint, and your image will be part of the solder mask. So that pretty much covers everything I wanted to cover in this video. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching.